Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Listen with Vobes. I'm Richard Vobes, and we are going to be doing another reading from Neighbourhood with Tickner Edwards. Thank you very much for coming back. The last couple of times I've struggled, or a couple of times I've struggled with this book. I'm going to try not to moan about it and try not to let it get me down. And if I do falter a bit, it is because it is quite a tricky book. And I apologise in advance for that, but I'll try not to worry too much about it. We are the 3rd of March 2021, and this is the second Tickner Edwards book that we have read, and we are thoroughly enjoying it. And actually, look, we are almost halfway through in 8 episodes, so presumably there'll be at least 16 of these in total. We're on June, so that shows you how close to halfway we are, because June is the 6th month, and I guess once we've finished this month, we will be halfway. So thank you very much for coming along. A quick hello to the lovely Julia, who popped in, or popped by, I should say, really, briefly, to pick up the cardigan that the lovely Mary, is Mary out there? Yes, there we go. So Julia has that lovely cardie for Joe. She's went to Morrison's to do the shopping, so she just breezed past, and I said, "Oi, if you're going to Morrison's, have this." So we had a little catch up at the well, you know, in the lane. Anyway, so I was able to pass that on. I've been out and made another video, so that's all lined up. I got back and it started to rain. Anyway, hello to lovely Julia, to TurboStream, to Robin Tripp, to Billabong O'Neill, to Philip and Mary, Justine, Audrey, Dave and John, to Alison O'Brien, Dudley Sawyer, Anne H, and Ollie the Squid. Hello to you, Ollie the Squid. Lovely to see you. And Lee Lawson, good afternoon. And anybody else who's coming along, thank you, Mary. Oh yeah, that's the lovely Julia. Yet another beautiful jumper. Lucky little Joseph, absolutely. So Mary, I'm going to order some more from you, because I'd absolutely love this, and it sits perfectly with my blue jacket. You'll see in tomorrow's video, you will see me with my blue jacket, which is here, and a pink shirt, and it works really well. So I love them. So I'll probably go for a yellow, the same golden yellow as before, and one more probably teal, if that's all right with you, Mary. Yellow and teal, if I can order those, that would be fantastic. And I think I can wear them with the jacket, and then when it's warmer without the jacket. So that should take me another few months of outside striding about. I do like the image. Good afternoon to Jen, who's just joined us as well, and anybody else, you're all very welcome. So we're on June here. I've got my my drink, ginger and lemon. I'm going to give that, it should be about ready now. Just get that sorted. A right dandy. Well, I know some people might say, oh, you know, it's a bit much, but I think when you do, my background is in theatre and making my own videos, of course, and a bit of television. And I think when you do that, what the thing it teaches you is, when you're on stage or on a camera, you've got to look good. Hello, Stephen Montville, lovely to see you. You've got to, because it's there for everybody, and it's an interpretation of who you are. You can look as slovenly as you like at home, but I think when you make a public appearance in any shape or form, and I think a lot of YouTube people just forget that, really. They forget that it's important. So to me, investing in wool particularly, and Mary's amazing skills, is very good, because it's part of the Bald Explorer ethos as well. So, Dave, I know you didn't say no. I know you didn't say it's a bit, the colourful is good. I know you didn't say that, Dave, and I wasn't implying that you did. I'm just, I suppose I'm just saying that in case that a lot of people would go, is he spending our patronage money on jumpers? I suppose that's, one's always having to be a bit careful because there's always somebody ready to poke you in the back. Anyway, let's get on with our reading, shall we? So, yeah, no, I wasn't saying that, Dave. Please don't take it the wrong way. June. Terry and June. This morning, for the first time in the year, I found myself unconsciously taking the shady side of the way. It was a small thing, truly, but it stood as an index of something great, perhaps the most portentous thing that happens annually in the life of him who is a countryman at heart and not merely by name. Summer had come. And Andrew Norris had come too. Nice to see you, what ho. And Sensible Paul, afternoon. Richard's neighbours are quiet. Oh yes, I forgot to say, they have stopped. I don't know whether they heard me screaming, but I've not heard a peep out of them. Summer had come. It was not only that the calendar told me it was the month of June. It was not only that the calendar told me the month of June. I felt it in the sunbeams, saw it in the hedgerows, the trees, read it in the pure azure of the summer sky. I took the shady side of the lane unthinkingly and laughed because I did it. Not that I laughed for that alone, but because gladness was welling up within me, unbidden, irresistible. I laughed for the same reason that the nightingale sang in the green briar thicket hard by. I stopped to listen to the song. It was June, and the nightingales would not be singing much longer. Perhaps in a week's time, at the worst, their music would be done. I silenced my footfall in the long grass by the wayside and crept up close to the nightingale's bower. Every year a nightingale came to this briar bush and sang there as she was singing now. The hedge was a very old one, lifting its dense green barrier 10 feet or more against the sunny southern sky. And, in all the years I could recall, the briar bush had never been without its nightingale. This one must have her nest close by, where all her ancestors must have built their nests, for how many generations back? Who can say? The life of this old hedge, towering far above me, and nearly as broad as it is high, could not be compassed by a man's life. It was thick and tall when the oldest in the village was but a child. At long regular intervals of years it had been trimmed, cut back, but the growth of the gnarled old stems, where they sprang from the ground, had not been checked. There its age stood recorded, and it would be a little wide of the truth to think of it as already thick and tall, already the traditional singing place of this race of nightingales, a full 100 years ago. The briar bush stood on the shady side of the way. The nightingale had perched in the sunshine beyond, so that the song filtered down to me through the tangle of interleaving leaves. And yet, it was not so much a song as a detached occasional reverie on the summer's morning. There is always something about the music of the summer migrant birds. They are creatures of eternal sunshine. Their life is no give and take of good and evil, like that of birds who stay with us all year through. They have no need to hearten themselves with memories of bygone sunbeams, to bring brightness within when all without is lurring and grey. Wisely, following the sun about the world from season to season, they ensure for themselves that the joy they sing is never a memory, but always the expression of the moment's living fact. They have but to turn the vision, the aspect of the hour, into its equivalent of music. More than all, you see this truth exemplified in the songs of Chaffinch and Willow Wren, which are so much alike in form, yet so strangely different in spirit. The hardy Chaffinch began his bubbling, rollicking song with the first warm day in March, and it was more than half a fiction. Today it was the same hard, set quality, like a petrified laugh in the woods. But the little Willow Wren is the slave of no long habit of pretences. She has followed the sun from the south, keeping up with its youth, and now, from the glowing wood-top, she sends down her slender echo of chaffinch music, as if, though she would fain be silent, she must sing for the very joy of the light. There is in it all the verve and gaiety of the chaffinch, yet infinitely softened and etherealized. And the long bowling phrase is never finished. It falls away and fails in the end, as if the singer suddenly realized her impotence to convey in melody one fraction of the morning's loveliness and light. Invisible through the dense tangle of briar-bush, to me, a voice and nothing more, the nightingale sat in her nook on the sunny side of the hedgerow, pouring out her song on the already song-burdened morning. Pouring out a song on the already... Sorry, something went pop. I thought one of my lights had just... Something went pop. You may not have heard it. It was a soft pop. I thought one of my lights had gone out. Anyway, sorry about that. Lost my space now. Something. I wonder what that was. It went pop. There's no smoke, so we're all right. Invisible through the dense tangle of briar bush, to me, a voice and nothing more. The nightingale sat in her nook on the sunny side of the hedgerow, pouring out her song on the already song-burdened morning, as a glider lays gold upon gold. Not a glider, clearly not a glider, a gilder, as a gilder lays gold upon gold. All its sweetness, its wild purity, its slow, sorrowful strength, and its sudden overtripping, its overtripping, overmastering joy drifted out of the sunshine of the meadow, the varied phrases coming turn and turn about with long intervals of silence, as though the singer ruminated on all the beauty before her and unconsciously sang her thoughts aloud. It was good to stand there in the cool shade and listen and take the facts of the thronging meadow life and colour beyond the hedgerow at such tuneful second hand. But at length the nightingale put such a call, such an insistence into her music, as sent me to the meadow gate a little way down the lane, just to see with my own eyes what manner of beauty could be to her so great an inspiration. Shading my eyes with my hands, as opposed to my feet, I looked out over the mowing grass and thanked God it was June. Knee-deep, almost, the grass stood under the morning sun, intensely green below, and above, white with the white of countless marguerites. I think that's marguerites. And higher still, rich rose red with myriads of tremulous sorrel plumes. A little way over the meadow, the green of the grass blades was lost, and the eye saw only the white of the great moon daisies and the sorrel red. Further still, these two merged into one surface of formless pink, upon which the breath of the slow western air drew a rippling pattern like watered silk. I passed through the gate and waded into the grass to the farthest limit of the oak shadow. All round the meadow these shadows lay upon the mowing grass, blue and cool in the universal glare. It mattered nothing which way the sunshine fell. The green oak boughs stretched out so far and so low that there was shadow beneath them everywhere. Just where I stood, there was a patch of poor and stony soil. The tall growing plants had shunned it, leaving it a little haven where the unconsidered trifles could see the sunshine and flourish in their little might. Faced with the rich bewilderment of summer growth, a spot like this offers irresistible attraction. To look for long on the great, magnificent, unwearied, is a power not given to all. I know what relief and pleasure in other times I have turned my back on snow-pinnacle mountains and soothed dazed eyes with a spot of grey-green lichen on a common stone. And now I turn from the boundless meadow radiance before me as from glory intolerable, and knelt to look a while at the tiny creviced beauties that lay among the clods. There was scarlet pimpernel and lilybind, gold-eyed cinquefoil and blue veronica, a score of nameless atoms staring the drab bare soil. Stooping lower, I noticed what I had never marked before, how the red of the pimpernel was centred with a crimson heart, crimson and scarlet, the military colours that I had always thought execrable. I can never say that word, execrable, because unnaturally blended. Here they are, brought together, justified by infallible artistry of the sun. The veronica seemed all pure Colbert blue as I stood gazing down upon it, but looked at closely, each minute flower revealed a complication of colour. The blue of its petals was not a simple tint throughout, but was striped with a darker blue down in the cup. From its centre, of sulphur yellow, 3 spires uprose. The one, rich purple, the other 2, a pale mauve. And as if this were not enough beauty for so small a thing, the slender stalk upon which each blossom trembled was a shaft of delicate, translucent crimson, feathered over with white. The cinquefoil was just as minutely wonderful in its way, studded with little flat golden blossoms. Its ferny growth mingled everywhere with the other rich-hued things, but it held itself aloof from them all. Even under the full noontide sun, it persevered its chilly, star-like quality. Its pale, silvery fronds seemed to quench the very sunbeams as they fell, and to make a cold spot on the earth in the midst of all the growing, soaring meadow colour, like frost in the fire. Many a time, in former years, I had looked at the cinquefoil thus, and marvelled at the ice-cold virtue of a thing that could repel the fierce Tarquin of the summer sun. Nursing the fancy, I would grant it nothing at length but a senseless chastity done up in a silver paper, as zealously guarded as little worth. But now that I took the pains to pluck a few of its flowers, and discovered something new about it, something that raised its value to me 100-fold. In all the meadow there was scarce another blossom with so sweet a scent. It was like the May, but at once more poignant and delicate. And thinking of the May, I straightforward forgot all about the cinquefoil and turned to wander along to the hedge. The time had gone by when the hawthorn overran the countryside with its billows of white blossom. these binding masses of white, snow and snow white and cold as snow are wonderful to look upon for a moment or two, but to me the hawthorn is always more lovely at the beginning and, most of all, towards the end of its flowering life. At neither of these times is it really white. The new blossom, the new opened blossom of the May is full of pink anthers, that, not antlers obviously, anthers, that in the aggregate colour the whole bush. At this hour, for it is no more than an hour, the hawthorn hedge is besieged by hordes of honey sippers, hive bees for the most part, but also every insect that can fly. Each flower keeps a rosy blush only so long as it remains unfertilised, and then colour and song forsake it altogether. The full-blown hedges of hawthorn have nothing for the ear, as they have little abiding solace to the eye. The full-blown hedges of hawthorn have nothing for the ear, as they have little abiding solace to the eye. But now again, as I rove along the narrow green way between the hedgerow and the tall grass of the meadow, the May, as of old, was beautiful to look upon. The pink anthers were dead, brown, shrivelled in their drained chalices, but the petals themselves, as they faded, had taken upon themselves a rich flush, the hectic of decay. Everywhere the hedgerow was wreathed and poised in this soft tint, the colour of old rose. It was the colour of death, and it was the colour of death, and that was often gay and bright enough, I knew. It seemed an ill thing wherein to delight on such a brave June morning, but the truth stuck fast in my mind. For all that, these festoons of dying May were nearly as beautiful as the best that youth and life could show. Nearly, yet as I wandered on, creeping from bay to bay of green shadow, and edging round the great jutting promontories of hedgerow growth, I came upon a sight and a sound that brought me to a more wandering halt than ever. It was my briar bush again, and the nightingale was still singing as I heard her from the lane an hour ago. But now I no longer stood outside the concert hall, her concert hall. I was here with her on the meadow side of the bower, and understood at last the full impact of her singing. While on the shaded northern flank of the hedge there was nothing but greenery, here, on the sunny side, the briar sprays were putting forth antlered buds, and one of them, close in my hand, had opened to a perfect flower. It was the first wild rose. If I had been Rip Van Winkle, there and then walking from a long-age sleep, I should have known the day of the month, almost the very hour. Rarely 6 days of June may pass in southern England, but never a seventh without this master sign of summer. Though storm and chill may hold back the music of the migrant birds, they cannot daunt the English roses. And we come to the end of that section. Martin Cannon says, "Hello, Richard. Heidelberg here in Brentford, Middlesex. Worked for them in France many moons ago. Just for your info, re your chat this morning. Now back to listening to you." Oh, brilliant. I did enjoy my time going around Heidelberg, apart from the spooky factor of the building going down. Those of you who haven't seen the video, Of course, I'm talking about when I was a security guard in the evening at Heidelberg in Brentford, not Brentwood. That's right, Brentford. Was it Brentford Nylons, who were also in that area and on that industrial... They were near Kew Gardens, if I remember rightly. Excuse me. Get myself comfortable for the next bit. Excuse. I had a latish dinner, which is a lunch rather, which was soup and bread, but it's repeating on me a little bit. So here we go. A stranger observant of trifles, coming into Windlecombe any time during the early summer, might note one common feature of the place, not remarkable at other seasons. All the garden gates were kept carefully closed, and all houses abutting on the street had their doors either shut altogether or replaced by low boards or fence bars. Even the gate of the churchyard, open day and night at other times, was now closed as heedfully as any. And more curious still, the entrance to the inn, where there were no children to come wandering out and none dare intrude, was cautiously barriered as the rest. Plainly, these obstructions were not set up against absconding babies, for the tiniest of them were invariably out of doors playing in the dust of the street. And yet there was no visible explanation of the phenomenon. It was a puzzle of a mildly interesting kind, giving just that gentle spur needed by the tired brain of a citizen holiday-maker, escaped into villagedom for a while, and lolling there, genially, yet rather contemptuously agape at the silence and sloth of country things. But if tide and the weather served, any moment of the day might bring... Hang on a minute. But if tide and weather served, any moment of the day might bring the desired solution of the mystery. From afar, over the hills, a deep, low clamour would begin to invade the songful village quiet. Then, on the crest of the nearest hilltop, a column of white dust would suddenly spurt up against the blue and spread slowly downwards, marking the winding course of the lane as with smoke from a travelling fire. Now, by degrees, the tumult would grow louder and deeper, revealing itself at last as the hoarse melody of voices from a flock of sheep. A flock so vast that, while the first ewes were already charging into the village, the last ones had not yet breasted the top of the hill. There would be no doubt now of the wisdom of the gate-shutting policy, as any of these that by chance had remained open would hastily be clapped into, and all about him the stranger would see children scramble into corners and mount upon doorsteps out of the way of the tornading host. He himself, indeed, would be glad to take shelter in the nearest doorway, where he could look upon the spectacle, stirring even to a nature dulled by a din of a town. Not sure I read that last bit right. He indeed would be glad of taking a shelter in the nearest doorway, where he would look on the spectacle, stirring even to a nature dulled by the din of a town. Now the hoarse note had swelled to a veritable hurricane of sound. The whole village bids fair to be submerged and swept away by an avalanche of wool. In the foremost marches, a shepherd boy, straw knapsack on his back and blue cotton umbrella under his arm. Behind him, the street is packed with the jostling, vociferating crowd of sheep, a solid mass of woolly life, extending as far as the eye can penetrate the cloud of dust. At intervals, in the throng, walk the under-shepherds, each with his dogs, all, dogs and men, adding their voices to the general uproar. And at the end of the procession, when at length it has stormed its way past, comes the master shepherd, a shadowy figure, indistinct but dust-laden, nothing certain about him but the glint of the sun on his crook and his easy, hearty replies to the shouted greetings of old acquaintance on the way. Every day in June, while the tides last, and there is water enough in the river for the work... Every day in June, while the tides last, and there is water enough in the river for the work of sheep washing, these great flocks pour through Windlecombe, some of them coming from lonely farmsteads miles away over the downs. Today it was the Ambledown wash, one of the largest of the year, and when the sheep had gone through and the dust had cleared from the sunshine, I set off myself, in oldest garb and thick-set boots, to join the string of onlookers drifting from all parts of the village towards the washing creek. But on these sheep wash days there is much more to do than look on at one of the most fascinating and exhilarating sights in all the year of farm work. A helping hand from every man used to the task is alike expected and freely given as a point of honour at these times. Each of us has his favourite wash, in which, as a matter of old custom, he takes his share of the heat and burden of the day. And to me, when Ambledown's turn comes round, is given, now by old established and hard-won right, the long crook by the plunge. As life journeys on, we tend to make ever less and less of these rare moments of swelling pride and self-satisfaction, and even to abrogate them altogether. But on this one day of the year, when I exchange a less notable tool for the long crook of Ambledown sheepwash, I feel the cares of my office gathering upon me. I go back nearer to the child's pure joy in a paper cocked hat and tin epaulets than at any other moment of my life. If you have never stood wide-legged, like a ship's captain in a gale, on a rickety hurdle 6 feet above the chaos of swirling, glittering water, crowded with the bobbing heads of sheep, your charge being not only to keep each ewe swimming down the wash to the tubman, but to sustain a constant wash on the weaklings and prevent them from drowning, you have never known responsibility's true zest. Picture to yourself an old chalk quarry on the river brink, long disused and abandoned to every form of wildlife, a shy green place overgrown with briar and bramble, merged at all other times of the year in eternal quiet, but now the scene of brisk activity, crowded with busy folk and innumerable sheep, and echoing with voices and laughter. The washing creek is a sort of bay of the river, a long strip of water caged by lofty fences, topped by a platform of hurdles whence the crookmen manoeuvre the struggling, gasping sheep in the water below. At one end of the creek is the plunge, where the sheep are thrown in. Midway down the wash, 2 tubs are sunk to within a foot of the water's level, wherein stand the washers. And at the far end appears a gradually rising slope up, which the dripping waterlogged ewes struggle inch by inch towards safety, and the green feed awaiting them. The green feed awaiting them beyond. It is nearing the top of the tide, but the work has not begun yet, nor will it begin until the flock have rested and cooled from its long journey over the downs. As I come down the zigzag path to the chalk quarry, the place seems almost as shy and still as ever. There is the multitude of sheep, 1,000 or more, quietly nibbling in the great pen, the shepherds, the wash gang, the little crowd of onlookers, who are lounging on the green riverbank and chatting idly together as if there were no more weighty business in hand than to enjoy the summer morning. The dogs are mostly asleep on their chains. Only the old captain of the wash is astir. He roves about, here tightening up a girth in his tackle, and there straightening a crooked hurdle. And every minute or two he goes and looks over the plunge, measuring the depth of water with his eye. At last he gives the signal. Every man goes to his post, and the silence of the old quarry breaks as with the crash of a sudden storm. For it is nearly impossible to convey a real idea of the hubbub and turmoil of the scene under any less decided simile. From the moment the first sheep is thrown in until the last terrified, bedraggled ewe staggers up the slippery incline at the other end of the creek, there is one long, unceasing babble of sound. Often a score of sheep are in the water at the same time, each one rendering the air with her piteous call. Those that have passed through the ordeal crowd together on the bank above, still lifting to the skies their mingled note of indignation and alarm, and those as yet dry and in the great pen anticipate their sufferings with a like deafening tumult. The yapping chorus of the dogs punctuates the entire symphony, and every man engaged in the work joins in a general running fire of commentary and mutual encouragement, although hardly any less forceful than the bellow of a bull. Although hardly any sound less forceful than the bellow of a bull can be heard above the din. Not the least onerous and responsible part is the great sheep wash. Not the least onerous and responsible part in a great sheep wash is the element of danger to the sheep, the risk of drowning always present when large numbers have to be put through the creek at a swinging pace. The head shepherd, and often the flockmaster himself, stands at the plunge and keeps a vigilant eye on the whole proceedings. Yet, even with the greatest care, sheep are sometimes drowned. It is a lucky day for washers and shepherds alike if the flock gets back to the farm without a single casualty. But there is a humorous as well as a tragic side to sheep washing. The continual splashing of the water soon drenches all the approaches to the creek, making them as slippery as ice. The platform of hurdles running the whole length of the wash is particularly a hazardous place from which to look on at the fun, and many a spectator, venturing too near, has received an impromptu ducking. This is an accident to which the throwers-in, as well as the crookmen, are specially liable, and the day is hardly complete unless someone has succeeded in dipping himself as well as the sheep. The time-honoured joke, then, is to force him down the creek with his woolly companions in misfortune and send him under the bar with all the rest. My goodness. What an amazing thing. Lee Lawson says that's definitely Burpham. They used to do the Arran. You can't imagine it. I think that's brilliant that they shut all the gates and they bar all of that and the sheep run through and then they get down to the creek, wherever it is. That sounds like some beautiful treatment. You'd get a spa or not. Yeah, that's probably would. I'm having a COVID-19 jab on Saturday, says Alison O'Brien. well done to you. Yeah, so there we go. Certainly did the dip sheep at Burpham. How interesting. How interesting that was. Just having a slight break. I wonder if there's any pictures online. Let's just have a moment. I'm just going to take a break from reading for a second. Just see if there's a, what does he call it? A sheep dip? Is it dip sheep wash? Let's just see. Burpham sheep wash. Images. Here we go. So it must take them a while to sort out. I can see the sheep, and it's a tiny picture. Sorry about that, but you can see they're sorting out the sheep wash area with the hurdles. And there they are with their sheep. Love the way they're dressed with their trousers and their old what do you call those things? Braces. Burpham. These old pictures of Burpham, the staff of the house. There he is, Tickner Edwards. Village blacksmith. The wheelwright, working away. Quick pint at the George and Dragon. Michael Haywill. And Anthony Tester. The river at Burtham. Wepham Cottage. The old village shop. 3 men in a boat, 1910. And we're back to the beginning again. Burpham. Oh, that's the... so no actual... I'd like to have seen pictures of the actual sheep going into the sheep wash. But there isn't any. There's a picture of somebody with a lot of sheep, but it's not quite the same. Oh, yeah. Can I view the image? No. Anyway, they still do it in some places, says Anne H. I watched the sheep on the downs being dipped last year. They protest very loudly. I bet they do. They showed the sheep watch in the film Tansy. Pictures on the internet if you Google. Ah, right. Excellent. How are you spelling Tansy? Yeah, T-A-S-Y. Let's have a... That is so tiny, I can barely show it, really. There's some sheep in the wash. Anyway, okie dokie. For days past now, the rain has been steadily falling, hour after hour, from dark to dark. Rain and wind together are always disconcerting, and often the melody in the last degree. The still soft summer rain, like this, not heavy enough to obscure an outlook, yet sufficient to serve as an excuse for stopping indoors, has all sorts of commendable qualities. Much of the time, both in daylight and darkness, I've spent lolling out of a little dormer window high up in the roof of this old house, and I have got to know many small things about life and work in Windlecombe that I have never known before. It would seem that the cat and I are almost the only able-bodied creatures, feathered, four-footed or human, that are not out and about in the rain, and I alone, because the indoor mood happens to possess me. If I shed that craze before the weeping weather is done, I may be squelching about for the rest all day. I may be squelching about with the rest all day in long sodden lanes, or slithering joyfully over the green turf of the downs miles away, barefoot and bareheaded, absent-mindedly whistling the first halves of innumerable tunes as I go. But of that in its season. The cat and I are of a mind now. The comforts of a dry coat appeal to each of us for the moment irresistibly, and we lean out over the window-sill no farther than will afford me a view of the village doings, and her an eye feast on the martins chattering about the roof eaves now. I saw Farmer Coles go by in his gig today, and heard him call out to his bailiff on the footway, "If 'tis fine, George, I'm in the marnin'. If 'tis fine, George, in the marnin', get the tackle down to Hoefield and make a start first thing." The word brought my heart into my mouth. The Hoefield is the field where the first wild rose opened to the spell of the nightingale's music, and it meant that haying time had come round at last. Tomorrow there might be a new sound in Windlecombe, the high ringing note of the mowing machines, and I knew then that there would be no hour of daylight free from it until the last meadow lay, shorn and desolate under the summer sun. In the modern village, in modern village life, the lot of the sentimentalist is no easy one, especially if he loves his neighbourhood. Though he may secretly repine for the old days, when the grass came down to the rhythmic song of the scythe, and the corn to the tune of a sickle, he cannot blink the fact that, in farm life, prosperity and machinery go hand in hand together. The true, indeed the only, way for him now is to realise that not all the beauty of the country things belong to old times, and not all the hard, ugly utilitarianism of nowadays has come in with the machinery. Honestly considered, there is no mechanical farm implement of today essentially at variance with the spirit of beauty. The threshing mill, or the reaper and binder, owes its form and parts to the same designer that made the sickle. The lines of a sailing ship are unvaryingly lines of grace because they are dictated by wind and water, and the unchanging needs of earth that made sickle, scythe and ploughshare, whatever they are as unchanging and impervious as ever. It was hard to conceive the nightingale's song without the loveliness of the mowing grass, the green dragonflies cruising over its sea of blossom, the shadows of the swallow's wings upon it, and the grumbling bees like pearl divers at fault down in the emerald fields depths. But now, listening to the songs of the birds in the village gardens around about, songs that all seemed to be more joyous of the grey light and the unceasing patter of rain, the truth fell cold upon me that the nightingale was no longer among them. But a few days past, she was keenly as sorrowfully as ever. But a few days past she was keening as sorrowfully as ever. In the one glimpse of soused moonshine last night, I had thought to hear her plaint far down by the river. I could not be sure of it, and the sound had not returned. Maybe her song is done at last, and I wish it were so, now that the grass is about to fall. With a little neck craning, I can contrive a view of the Reverend's garden, or as much of it as is discernible through the crowding trees. On the smooth, fair lawn, I see his white doves strutting, but they are alone today. Generally, when I look forth, there is the gaunt black figure pacing to and fro with these snow-white atoms fluttering at his feet. At the end of the lawn, one arm goes out, and the figure pulls up at the first touch of the rose-covered trellis. There is the bank of mignonette at the other end. I don't know what that is. Mignonette. And here he halts and turns, warned by the music of the bees. But I have never been able to guess what guides him unerringly between the rippled edges of the flower beds, nor why, when walking under the wall, hung from one end to end with blue racemes of wisteria, he goes no further each way than the limit of the blossom's reach. The gleaming white turret of syringa, of acacia, of guelder rose, these I know are just visible to him, and his doves lighten the darkness about his feet. But there are whole stretches of the garden given over to deep-hued things, rhododendrons and peonies, Canterbury bells and flaming tiger lilies. Amidst these he must pass with eyes as little aware of their passionate colour as I of a tiger moth's scarlet when he burrs in my ear at night. Yet is glowing colour of a truth of a thing, a thing that reaches us through one sense alone. I have doubted it ever since. An angry shout struck up to me just now from the side alley below the green, where some of the poorest and prettiest of the cottages are jumbled together. It is strange how far a cry carries on these still rainy mornings. The shout was followed by the shrill tones of a woman and the thud of something being hurled into the street. Presently, through the alley mouth, appeared a man with a basket on his back. He came up the street through the rain, bent and lurching, his black beard wagging with imprecations he was at no pains to subdue. It was Darky, the tramp, fern seller, ne'er-do-well, a familiar figure in Windlescombe. As usual, he was pretty far gone to liquor. He took the middle of the way, addressing himself to all passers-by indiscriminately. "Women," he cried in his fine deep voice, with the violoncello quality in it, "women, ye may live ye crack o' doom, sir, and then never larn how to take 'em. I'll have two," says she, "only last Saturday, madam, and bring another brace, Darky," she says, "when ye happens along again, and as nice could be, sir. And now, as soon as sots eyes o' me, she hups with her foot, and—" He turned the corner of the house, and I heard no more. I wonder now how Darky fares this weather in his downland eyrie. It has always been a mystery in Windlecombe as to where he passes his nights. At all times, winter or summer, he is to be met with tramping up the lane towards the downs, using the last light of day, apparently, and putting himself as far as may be from the chance of a night's lodgings. And in the early mornings you meet him trudging down again from the heights, his basket full of odd hedgeside garnerings for sale in the town. The mystery is a mystery to me no longer, although it was quite by chance I lit upon him in his secret nook. We will find out about his secret nook in tomorrow's show, because the time has ticked on. So we will find out about him in his secret nook tomorrow. He's going to mark the spot where we are. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that was all right. It was not so grim today. I could feel myself getting a little bit tongue-tied towards the end. Hope the water is cold, otherwise they come out wearing felt, says Dudley Sawyer. Yeah, we don't want any of that, do we? Of all the felt I've ever felt, I've never felt a piece of felt that felt like that felt. Such a lovely journey this story takes us. Thank you so much. That's my pleasure. Have a good night to everybody. I watched the kettle go through the wash on the hoof something channel, but I'm sure there are videos of sheep in a wash. Yes, I didn't actually look on YouTube, but I suppose there must have been. Anyway, there we go. Thank you so much. There's a Vobes show this evening. Hope you enjoy that. In the meantime, I must go and sort out some dinner and stock up the old Essie. But thank you for watching, and have a good evening, whatever you're up to. And I will see you tomorrow at the same time. Well, at 4 o'clock, not the same time now, because I will be finishing, obviously. That's how it works in this business. Till then, bye-bye.